So there I was, sitting in my car, ugly crying over another overdraft notice. I had become the person that I swore that I would never be. 29 years old and I'm still borrowing money. And I was literally hiding in my car so my ex-girlfriend wouldn't see me breaking down again. And the worst part is I had actually been doing Joe Dispenza's meditation or work for 2 years during this time. I had all the books, watched all the videos. Even convinced myself that I was abundant, while my bank account was telling a completely different story. That is like telling everyone that you're a great chef while eating ramen noodles every night. Like, come on, I was so delusional. But then something actually happened that flipped my entire world upside down. And within 30 days, I manifested $10,000 from a source that I could have never predicted. And even more importantly, my entire relationship with money completely transformed. Now, the weird part was, my parents actually noticed the change before the money even showed up in my life. I remember one moment my mum literally called me and asked if I was seeing someone new. Because I sounded so different. And when I would visit them, apparently I was a different person. But the only relationship that had changed was the one that I had with myself. Because I'd finally broken up with my identity, who struggled all the time. That was my old identity. So in this video, I'm going to break down the exact process that I used, not the surface level shit that you've heard before, but the deep identity level work that I completely missed. And I want to share this with you as well, because I want to show you how I went from meditating to escape my reality to actually transforming it. And why the painful identity crisis I experienced was actually the doorway to everything I wanted. I'm gonna warn you though, this is not about thinking positive thoughts and checks coming in the mail, but this is about facing the one thing most of us are terrified to admit, that we don't believe we deserve abundance. Because I used to believe that as well. But before I dive into what actually worked, I want to paint a picture of where I was. Because my financial situation was a mess. My credit cards were maxed out and I'm dodging calls from debt collectors and I'm borrowing money with zero plan to pay people back. My health was rubbish. I was anxious and I didn't even know it. Every time my phone buzzed, I would get this wave of panic thinking, oh my God, it's another bill, another friend asking for their money back. And my relationships, oh my God. Let's just say, it's hard to be present and loving when you are constantly one notification away from a panic attack, okay? And oh my God, me and my old girlfriend were fighting all the time during that time. And my friends were starting to be busy whenever I called. So here's the thing. On paper, I shouldn't have been struggling. Look, I had skills, I had opportunities, and something smacked me in the face. And I realized that I was the common denominator in all of my problems. I was cock-blocking myself, let's just say that. And so, what I realized was, I was using spirituality to bypass my actual problems. Right? I was basically putting cologne on my stinky ass body. And I was meditating to escape my reality, not to transform it. Like sitting there, mentally rehearsing abundance, and actively looking at my bank without actively looking at my bank statements as well. Like, money flows to me easily, and I would be ignoring calls from debt collectors. Like, what? That is like saying you're on a diet while eating pizza in your car before you get home or something like that. But meditation isn't about escaping your current reality, but it's about creating a new one. However, that requires honesty, acknowledging where you are right now. Because you can't create a new destination if you don't know your starting point. So the turning point for me came when I forced myself to sit down, look at my reality of my financial situation, right? Printed out all my bank statements, made a list of everyone that I owed money to, calculated my entire debt. And fuck, it was crazy, it was brutal. I cried, I felt shame, embarrassed, but I had to be honest with myself. I hadn't been honest with myself in years. And so I realized you can't transform what you don't acknowledge. You can't heal what you don't feel. You can't change a pattern if you're pretending it doesn't exist. Oh my God. So what I realized was I was approaching manifestation from my ego rather than from my essence or my soul. I was trying to manifest money to prove something, to prove that I wasn't a failure, to prove that I was spiritual enough, to prove that I actually had my shit together, my life together. And it was like being that guy who wants a girlfriend just so he can post on social media telling everyone that he has a girlfriend and he's not a loser. And that energy is disgusting. So when you're trying to attract a partner or trying to attract money, the universe can actually smell that desperation. And that smells like shit. So manifestation isn't about getting something you don't have, but it's about becoming the person who already has what you desire. I was doing it backwards. Because I was thinking, once I have this money, then I'll feel worthy. Then I'll feel secure. Then I'll feel abundant. But I needed to flip the script. I needed to feel worthy, secure, abundant first. And then the money would follow. Right? It's like trying to get water from a hose and standing on it. And then you're wondering why nothing is coming out. That was me. So what changed everything for me was when I started asking different questions. Instead of how can I get more money, I started asking who would I be if money wasn't a problem? How would I feel? How would I carry myself? How would I treat others? These questions led me to realize that what I really wanted wasn't just money. What I wanted deep inside was freedom, security, the ability to contribute, to be generous. And money was just one of those qualities that could help me express those things that I really wanted in life. Okay? The third thing, and perhaps the most craziest mistake I made, was not realizing that true manifestation requires an identity crisis. And not just a little one. I'm talking full-blown, like, who the heck am I? Existential crisis. But I had built my entire identity around struggle, around not having enough, around being the guy who was always hustling, however not quite making it, right? Not finishing what I set out to finish. And that identity was so deeply ingrained that it was invisible to me because it was who I was. And I can honestly say that it came from my huge debt. So we need to become nobody in meditation to step out of our memorized self and into the field of pure possibility. But I was so attached to my identity that I couldn't even let it go, even in meditation. I was trying to manifest abundance while still identifying as someone who struggles with money. What? That is like trying to drive forward while keeping your foot on the brake. Like, what the heck? Not going anywhere. And I wasn't going anywhere. And this painful realization was that who I thought I was didn't actually exist. That identity as the guy who struggles with money was just a story that I've been telling myself for so long that I believed it was reality. Like, okay, I had an incident that rocked me emotionally, but I kept believing that story and I didn't... What? And so that triggered an existential crisis in me. If I wasn't the guy who struggles with money, then who the hell am I? And that was scary. That felt like dying. It felt like an ego death, right? And I want to emphasize that this identity crisis is not just a side effect of this work, but it is necessary. It is so necessary because we can't become a new person while holding on to our old identity. Something has to die. Something has to die for something to be emerged or reborn like a phoenix. So once I allowed my old identity to start dissolving, something unexpected happened. I had a massive emotional release that I was not prepared for it. And there was one morning during meditation where I was focusing on feeling abundant despite my empty bank account, right? And then suddenly this grief just washed over me. Like not just sadness, but deep grief. And Tears started coming out of my eyes, and then I started ugly crying. You know what I mean? Like something ancient was being released out of my system, and it was intense. And in that release, I suddenly understood what I had been holding onto for all these years. And it wasn't just a belief about money. It was a belief about my fundamental worth as a human being. Because somewhere deep in my subconscious, I believed that I didn't deserve abundance. I believed that I wasn't good enough, worthy of enough, valuable enough to have financial currency, financial freedom. And I've been carrying that since childhood. Because emotions are the end products of past experiences, and so they are how experiences are encoded in our bodies. Now, in that moment of release, I was literally letting go of, decades of unworthiness. And what felt like hours, what was just probably 20 minutes, after I stopped crying, I felt a sense of peace. Like not happiness, not excitement, just deep, calm peace. Like silence after a storm. It felt like I would put down a heavy backpack that I'd been carrying without realizing that I'd been carrying it. And in that space of relief, something shifted on a deeper level that I no longer needed to prove my worth through money. And so, about a week after that meditation, after about a week about that release, I woke up one morning and I knew something was different. I can't explain it, but I felt wealthy. Not I'm going to be wealthy someday or I'm manifesting wealth. I felt wealthy in that moment, despite my bank account. It hadn't changed at all. It wasn't euphoria or excitement, but it was a quiet certainty, a knowing, a deep knowing. I felt like a wealthy person who happened to be temporarily without funds, like a millionaire who left his wallet at home. You know what I mean? That's the best way I can describe it. Basically, I stopped identifying with my bank account and started identifying with the energy of abundance itself. My worth was no longer tied to what the number reflected in my bank account. It's like I'd been walking with a name tag that said, I'm broke. And I was just like, get it off me. And so I started making different decisions. Not because I was trying to manifest money, but because I was naturally operating from this new state of being. Stopped checking my bank account obsessively, stopped looking at my emails, hoping for a miracle. And I even had a conversation with my ex about the money or the financial situation that I'd been avoiding for months. So I reached out to some clients I hadn't spoken to in a while, not with desperation to get work, but with genuine interest on how I could serve them. And none of these actions were part of my manifestation strategy, let's just say that. But they were natural expressions of my new state of being. I wasn't trying to become abundant. I was operating, making decisions from a place of abundance. And that is when I finally understood what becoming the person who already has what you desire meant. It's not about pretending or affirming or visualizing, but it's the shift fundamentally in identity that changes how we show up in the world. Like being that example, demonstrating it in our daily actions, the choices, decisions we make on a moment-to-moment basis. And about after 3 weeks after that morning, I got a call from an old client, and I haven't spoken to them or worked with them in about 2 years. And they had a project that needed my exact skill sets of sales and marketing, and they needed someone to start immediately. Guess what the budget was? $11,500. Now, I would love to tell you that I manifested this through my mental rehearsal, where I saw exactly $10,000 coming in from a specific client, but that would be bullshit, and I would be lying to you. I hadn't thought about this client in years, and I hadn't visualized this specific amount. So, what I had done was shift my state of being. I had released my old identity and started operating from a new one. And that shift changed how I showed up in the world, which changed what the world was reflecting back to me. And so, this client had actually reached out to 3 other people before me, but none of them were available in the time frame that they needed it. Now, in the past, I might have, been desperate and immediately said yes without understanding the scope or the value of this project. But from my new state of being, I had a different conversation. I was asking thoughtful questions. I shared insights on how to make this project more effective. I was honest about what would work and what wouldn't. I wasn't trying to impress them or try to make a sale or secure the contract. I was simply coming from a place of service, from a place of abundance, rather than struggle, desperation. You know what I mean? Let me show you how professional I am. And so they responded with that same level of energy. And so they initially hired me for that project, and then they hired me for another project, and that totaled for $15,000 in total. And so the money was just a physical reflection of the real manifestation, which was my transformed state of being. Now, in the past, whenever I would get a large sum of money, I would immediately go into fear mode. Oh my God, am I going to lose this? And I would stress about how to make it last. Okay, this is going to last me for 12 months. You know what I'm talking about? But this time was different. I received the money with gratitude, without attachment, paid off a bit of debt, set aside from taxes, invested a portion, and I even enjoyed spending some of it without guilt. And the most amazing part is more opportunities kept coming. Not because I was desperately seeking them, but because I was operating from this new state of being that naturally attracts them. Like I was a person that could receive them. And so what surprised me about this whole experience wasn't the money, but how the transformation rippled out into every aspect of my life. Like my relationship with my ex-girlfriend transformed. And for years, money had been a source of tension between us. But as my relationship with money healed, so did our relationship. We started having conversations about money that weren't charged with emotion. We actually started dreaming about our future together again. My health improved. I wasn't in feeling that knot in your stomach when you have anxiety. That disappeared. Slept better. My energy levels increased. My digestion improves. Turns out, if you have financial stress, that literally makes you sick in your stomach. Okay? And my work transformed in ways I would never expect. I started creating from a place of service, inspiration, rather than desperation. I was more selective on who I worked with, and I valued genuine recognition for the value I provided. So, for you, let's break down the actual process that led me to this transformation. Because first, you have to face your current reality exactly as it is. No bypassing, no pretending things are better than they are. Next, uncover the identity that's creating your current reality. Okay? What story are you telling yourself about who you are in relation to money, love, health, whatever? Third, allow yourself to feel and release emotions stored in those patterns, right? This is supposed to be visceral, not an intellectual process. And fourth, you have to be willing to let go of who you think you are to become who you are capable of being. This creates a space of possibility where your new identity can emerge. And fifth, begin to embody the energy of your desired state. Not pretending, but actually feeling the qualities of abundance, health, wholeness, security, free, whatever it is you want to create. And then sixth, from this new state of being, make decisions, take actions that are aligned with who you are, rather than who you've been, okay? Fifth, remain open to receiving what comes, but don't attach your worth or identity to specific outcomes. This process isn't a quick fix or a manifestation hack. It's a fundamental transformation in how you relate to yourself. And I'm all about that. Fundamentals, lasting transformation. How you relate to yourself, how you relate to money, how you relate to reality. Because that's what works when nothing else does. So, what's the real lesson in all of this? Well, it wasn't about the 10K. Though that is very welcoming. I love money, okay? But it's about who I had to become to receive that $10,000, and who you might have to become through your own transformational journey as well. Because manifestation isn't about getting stuff, but it's about becoming the person who naturally attracts and creates what you desire. It's not about changing your circumstances, but it's about changing yourself so profoundly that different circumstances naturally emerge. And we need to become supernatural to transcend our conditioned patterns and to tap into our creative potential. But what I really want to emphasize, listen carefully, is that this process often requires us to face our deepest fears, release our most cherished identities, and surrender our illusion of control. And oh my God, it's not easy. It's not always comfortable, but it's definitely worth it. Because when you transform your relationship with money, love, health, whatever, well, for me personally, I wasn't just changing my financial situation, but I was changing how I related to myself, to others, and to life itself. Stepping into a more authentic, empowered, and expansive way of being to the world. And that's the real manifestation. That's the real manifestation hack. Not in the dollars in your bank account, but the person you become in the process of transforming with your relationship with money, health, love, life, whatever. So, if you are someone that has done all the work and nothing seems to be happening, and if you would like to have assistance in not creating the life that continuously shows up, or stop with the old patterns of that old self and break out of it for good, then please click on the link below. It will take you straight to the details about my private mentorship, where you can actually see how the process actually works, and I consider it unique and why it's different from everything out there as well. So if you're ready to stop circling the same problems and step into a new level, then click on the link below. Let's see if it's a good fit, and if it is, then let's talk.